welcome back to the Gubba Homestead. I'm Gubba, and today we are going to talk about necessary tools that you need for your food storage to build a well-rounded food storage. This is important so you always have food for you and your family during any situation that may come about. And you may be thinking right now, hey, we are in times of plenty, because that's kind of what it's feeling like. That's the general vibe right now. People are very positive about what's going on here in America. But I would like to remind you, we were also in times of plenty in 2019, 2020, and the grocery stores were completely wiped within an instant when we started having the news roll out of a virus that was spreading from country to country. So that's all it took for empty grocery store shelves. And I talk about this a lot because this really was a pivotal moment for me in my food storage and homesteading. But going to the grocery store and seeing empty shelves, fridges, freezers, the whole place is barren, I guess is kind of traumatic, because that's what really kicked me into gear for my food storage, and that's why I'm here today to help you. Before we get started, just a reminder, I do have a food storage course that walks you through how to build a food storage in any space on any budget, and I do have a canning course that specifically takes you through pressure canning, water bath canning, different methods of canning, the science of canning, and gets you comfortable canning in your own homestead kitchen. Let's dive in. The first tool that we are going to dive into is a vacuum sealer. I love vacuum sealing. I feel like it is an incredible tool to get your feet in the water for food storage because one, they are affordable, and two, it is easy to use. There isn't much of a learning curve. It doesn't feel as daunting. You just plug it in and go. I've had this machine for about 4 years now. It's super simple. It doesn't have a ton of different buttons, so it's not complex. And what it looks like is it comes with these bags right here. So these are the vacuum seal bags. And what happens when you put food into these bags, this machine will suck all of the air out of the bag to help preserve the food and extend the shelf life. When it comes to food storage, that's what we were after. We were after extending shelf life. I use my vacuum sealer for food in my freezer. I use my vacuum sealer for food in my fridge. And trust me when I say, this is a game changer for just everyday food preservation. You can't vacuum seal foods for 30 plus years because air eventually will get back into here. But if you are vacuum sealing produce to put in your freezer, this is a great tool. If you're vacuum sealing some produce to put in jars, into your fridge to extend the shelf life, this is also a great tool. I also vacuum seal cheese. I vacuum seal bacon. Like if I open bacon one day, I don't eat it all, I'll put it in here, vacuum seal, put it back in my fridge. So those are just some examples. This is an incredible tool because like I said, it's affordable and it's easy to use. Just a special note, if you're going to vacuum seal things in jars, it does require an extra attachment. Well worth it. The next tool that you need in your food storage arsenal is a canner. So there are different methods of canning that I go over in my canning course, but if you're gonna listen to me on one thing today, have it be a canner, because having these shelf-stable, ready, amazing, delicious meals and desserts and just individual produce like potatoes or broth just ready to go on your shelf is amazing. Literally mind-blowing. Like this right here, this is beef stew. This is one of my favorite things. All I have to do is open it up, warm it up, and it's ready to go. Technically, canned food can last indefinitely, but this beef stew most likely is not going to look like beef stew in 30 years. So it is optimal to eat your canned goods sooner rather than later. The texture and appearance will differ, and that is going to also affect the taste. I don't think I will be eating this in 30 years, but canning is absolutely incredible to put ready-made meals onto your shelf, or to have individual ingredients like ketchup, bone broth, tomato sauce, literally anything you can dream up, you can can. Canning is also one of the more fun methods of food storage, and I would like to add this is a digital pressure canner. It does both water bath canning and pressure canning. It doesn't water bath can quartz though, that's the only downside, but I love this thing because it's easy to use and it does everything for you. Canning is the perfect segue into the next tool that is great for food storage. Behind me, I have freezers. I actually have multiple freezers here. I have been given some freezers and I'm never going to say no when someone offers to give me freezers. I've had this freezer also for a long time. It moved with me out here and I have gotten one more freezer, and then there's some freezers that stayed behind. So I just have a ton of freezers, okay? Freezers are incredible for food storage because freezing the food, the meat, the produce, whatever you're doing, extends the shelf life. The only downside is if and when the power goes out, this food in here is going to spoil. So you need a plan for your food that is in your freezers, whether that's a generator or, like I said, canning is the perfect little slide into freezing because canning, you can can what is in your freezer. You can can meats, you can can vegetables, you can can fruit, all different kinds of recipes. It is especially beneficial for your meats. I actually had a friend this winter, their freezer went out and they lost about 1/4 of a cow. How heartbreaking, because that is high quality meat and it is expensive. They ended up giving it to me because they didn't feel comfortable with the meat, putting it back into another freezer or preserving it. So they gave it to me for my dogs. Yes, I also have a dog freezer for dog food, but freezers are your friend. Whether you have a freezer just on your refrigerator, the vacuum sealer is going to help you create space in your freezer. The canner is going to help you preserve food from your freezer. See how all of these tools are tying together? But freezing is honestly one of my favorites just because of how easy it is to use. The next tool for your food storage arsenal is a freeze dryer. Freeze dryers are like the holy grail of food storage tools. Why? Because they allow you to build a long-term food storage. And when I say long-term, I'm saying 30+ years. Yes, you can store some foods 30+ years, and they are going to retain most of their nutrition, whereas in canning and other methods, the foods lose their nutrients, they degrade. Freeze drying helps preserve the nutrients. And what's so cool about freeze drying is it helps preserve the integrity of the food. Whereas if you remember, I said about canning in 30 years, that beef stew isn't gonna be looking a lot like the beef stew that I had in my hand today. Whereas if I freeze dry beef stew, it's still gonna be looking like beef stew. So this is an incredible tool. The only downside is it has a large upfront cost, but there's so many perks to it if you camp, if you hunt, and you can make those ready to go meals. If you go to any sporting goods store and get a freeze-dried meal, 1, they are going to be expensive, and 2, they're going to have an ingredients list that looks scary. I'm actually holding one right now, and there is a lot of processed ingredients. This is probably like 60+ ingredients, I would say, for, I believe it's just noodles and beef. So pretty similar to a beef stew. You can make noodles and beef off the top of my head with under 10 ingredients, put it in here, and then store it properly in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and have a wholesome, nutritious meal. Whereas something you're gonna get at the store that has the same amount of shelf life is not going to be so nutritious with 60+ ultra processed ingredients. So the perks are a long-term food storage. You can also make amazing snacks. One of my favorite things to do is freeze dry fruit, especially in the summer when I have fruit coming in on my trees. It tastes so good. You can freeze dry leftovers so you never have any more wasted food. Again, if you're camping, if you're hunting, there are so many things that you can do with this. Also too, this is a size medium, Harvest Right. I'll have a link down in the description. The size mediums now have 5 trays. Whereas mine that I got a few years ago only has 4 trays. So you're actually getting a better deal getting the medium now than when I did. I love my freeze dryer. And to connect these different food storage tools, what you can do is take frozen food and put it directly into your freeze dryer. Now let's talk about the tool that you need to make sure that your freeze-dried food stays good for 30 years. Now, if you are wanting the long-term food storage, you are going to need Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. So I mentioned how moisture ruins food storage. Oxygen also ruins food storage, and that's why you use oxygen absorbers. It removes all the oxygen from the containers that you pack your food in. So whatever you freeze dry, you will be packing into Mylar bags. I really enjoy these Wallaby Mylar bags because they stand up on their own, and when you're doing a ton of food storage, that makes a huge difference of when you are filling the bags. This is what the bag looks like. You just load up your food. There are different sizes. So there's mini sizes, like if you're doing coffee, and coffee doesn't have to be freeze dried. Well, you could make coffee, have it liquid form and then freeze dry it, but if you did like powdered coffee, you could do it in smaller bags. And then you have different size oxygen absorbers based on the size of bag and the food that you are storing. Again, this might sound a little complex. I go over all this in my food storage course, but the more that you use the Mylar bags and the more that you're storing, you are going to get used to them. And they will become one of the most utilized tools in your food storage because again, Mylar bags are taking your food from only lasting a few weeks to lasting to 30 years. How cool is that? There are things you can't store in here, like you wouldn't just dump in a juicy, ripe orange or orange juice. There are rules that you have to follow, but these are incredible for food storage. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful for you on your food storage journey. I wish I would have known all this and all the intricacies before I started. It makes it a lot easier. There's so many tools that make your food storage just come together, and you see how they all work together. They all have a different purpose, and they all work in different ways to extend the shelf life of your food. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you next time, and have an amazing day. Bye.